Hey there, welcome to Her Truth Revealed, Unraveling Our Midlife Era. I'm your host, Wonderful Morrison. This space is for the woman who's done pretending, done hiding, and ready to step fully into her truth. Midlife isn't about fading into the background. It's a time where resilience lights the way and authenticity becomes the loudest voice in the room. In this season of our lives, we are more than just survivors. We are creators, revolutionaries, and unapologetic women rewriting the rules. I've been through my battles, rebuilding from loss, betrayal, and heartache. But here's the truth. Every challenge, every tear, and every setback has led me to this moment of profound transformation. Together, we're going to dive into raw, real conversations that shatter stereotypes, tackle the tough stuff, and embrace the powerful magic that is midlife. So, if you're ready to live this chapter with boldness and joy, hit subscribe. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it and leave a review so we can keep this revolution going. Ladies, no more masks, no more apologies, just the truth of who we are. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to another episode of Her Truth Revealed. With me today, I have such a special guest. Special in so many ways. Special because she is such an extraordinary human. And when I say extraordinary, I think like Energizer Bunny. I grew up in the 80s when the commercials were this Energizer Bunny that would come across your screen. And the whole theory is it doesn't stop, which sometimes, today we think, oh, that's such a toxic, person. No, actually, I think it's how we frame energy that matters the most. And this woman is her energy is like sunshine, and most of us are cloudy, foggy days.
Oh,
And she really just brings this energy. Sun is medicinal, and that's how I feel around her. And it's very medicinal to be around Alicia because she brings things to you that you have been maybe thinking of and thought, I don't know if I can do that. And then she did that yesterday. So let's move on. But we also met at a beautiful experience of writing our books. 2 years ago, we were in the process of getting our books together. And today, that is what we're celebrating. We're celebrating her book that we were all discussing throughout. And I'm happy to report, Alicia, I made it past chapter 5.
good job. It's consuming, isn't it?
Yes, it is very consuming, and I think everything happens in its right time and all of the beauty of it. So Alicia is my beautiful friend, but before we get started in that deep diving into what she's been up to for the last 2 years, I just want to say thank you to my audience and to everyone who listens, everyone who says kind words about what they hear and what they have been influenced or inspired by the women that I have conversations with. Thank you for following all our social media, all of our platforms. And thank you for sharing every episode that has, again, just inspired you or moved you in some way. And I know today is going to do the same. So without further ado, welcome, Alicia.
Whee! Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. And it's awesome to reconnect and just be able to share this moment with you because you did see the muck and the mire of writing this thing. I actually had to pause and go to therapy for a little bit to process my own stuff. So as you mentioned, I do have the book, but I also am a nonprofit leader. I am the founder and president of Survivor-Led Solutions, which is an anti-human trafficking agency. We are nationwide, which is really beautiful because 2.5 years ago, we were growing out of my bedroom, right? Like in a whiteboard. And now we're a thing. And really the focus is leadership development and professional entrepreneurship for survivors. Really, when we get to this space of healing, there's not enough agency around the long-term healing, lifeline because healing is a roller coaster, right? It's non-linear. So a lot of effort and money and dollars, and attention is put into that research, rescue,
Yeah.
removal, right? We want to scrub the internet. We want to look for people, and I applaud those people who do knock down doors and look for people. Then there's a lot of information now, really around like the safe house mentality. How do we make a program that's survivor centered, which is great. But that lasts about a year. And then the survivors are sort of like expected, like, now you're healed, go figure it out. And a lot of the support, whether it was financial support or educational support or housing support, a lot of that disappears. And healing is not short term, right? It's not acute. It's long term. So we said, why don't we try to fill and bridge the gap at the other end of the spectrum and work our way backward? So that's what we do. I have about 50, I think there's 58 women now who get on our calls each month, and they just talk about where they're at and how can we support them. So I created this system to be completely donation based as a nonprofit. And then I built my own program as a consultant. And basically, I get hired and paid by, these training opportunities and speaking gigs. And then I fundraise for the women. So I've been able to purchase in beautiful ways, right? Like laptops and desks and chairs and professional clothing and scrubs. And I got an entire cosmetology kit for a woman who's about to graduate from her cosmetology certification here locally, right? Like just things that you need to move the needle out of survival and into what I call this like warrior sort of mentality. It's not just thriving anymore. Like we got to look beyond that, right? Even that word to me sounds like you're going to get stuck. Like you're thriving, which means like you're building and you're building and you're building. But when do you ever like find self-actualization? And I think we're all on that journey, right? Wonderful. Like we're all on that journey to figure out what our purpose is and how to step into it and really run in there. So that's kind of what the nonprofit does. And in order to replicate myself, I knew I needed to write my story,
Right? Why? Why this? Why is this what Alicia chose of the bajillion things you could choose into? Why this? Because I think there's a root to all of the things that we do, right? As we search for our purpose, this lady told me one time, she said, she goes, honey, I'm 79 years old. And what I realize now is if I did a timeline of all the things that's happened, it all led me to this one thing that I'm doing now at 80 years old. And I thought, that's a good one. So what was your trajectory timeline of your life that brought you to survival-led consulting, kingdom building for our lotus flowers?
Yeah. I think in the book that I wrote, it was sort of like this predetermined leader that was going to emerge. It looked a little sloppy when I tried to take the wheel, So as a survivor of being trafficked, that was sort of the halt in my development, which I was a junior in high school and it was the coach of my high school. And, we can get wrapped up in this story. But what I'd like to say about it is I didn't know what I didn't know because the level of education that we knew about trafficking was very minimal at that time. But also it's hidden in plain sight. So when we use fear-based approach in education of an awareness, right? Like say no to drugs, right? Don't take candies from a stranger. We're miscounting and misguiding young people to not use their discernment with everyone, right? So families can be part of this problem. For me, it was a coach in the high school. So it was just that we trusted this person and he took advantage of kids and he exploited them and used their vulnerability to make a profit. So that was probably the turning point and gave me a message, right? Turning my mess into a message. I was always interested in empowering women. That was always a piece of me. And I've been working on it without really realizing the whole trafficking piece because much like a lot of probably people listening, they never really heard about it until for the last 10 years, right? We've only really gotten the grip on it in the last 5 years.
Right.
And that's because the COVID shutdown really revealed a lot of things in the movement. What we're seeing now is, and we call it modern day slavery, but if you even go back to the Bible, right, the oldest book that we have written, it is in there many times, from the story of Joseph being sold by his brothers to the woman at the well, right? And so even Jesus was traded for 5 pieces of silver. So like,
Right.
think about that, you know? So we've known about this issue. It's a person issue, right? It's a people thing.
Mhm.
It's not about money. It's not about sex or work. It's about like taking advantage of somebody's vulnerabilities.
Mhm.
So that gave me a mission, right? You've got this emerging leader. You've got this terrible thing that happened to her. I told you I tried to be in charge for about 10 years and I was just bankrupt and lost all my credit and was homeless and was addicted and had
Mhm.
all these issues that I had to try to figure out, even as somebody who grew up with both parents at home, somebody who had a roof over her head for the first, 18 years of her life. I should have known better, quote unquote. And so
Right.
if I am the poster child of those who should know better,
Mhm.
then how would anybody with these extreme vulnerabilities be able to make it through? So that's why survivor led solutions, right? Nothing about us without us. Like if you're going to talk to people about how to prevent, you need to include survivors. If you're going to talk to people about how to intervene, you need to include survivors. How to heal, you need to include survivors. And that's where this kingdom of survivors, if you will, are really like finding their purpose, stepping into their lane, and I'm just supporting the journey.
Wow. And so you're already creating all of this because we know if I'm gonna also link our original story, our original interview of that where we dug a little deeper into what happened to you. But in the midst of all of that, writing this book. So let's talk about that because I think everybody put it up again. I think that, everybody knows inside them they have a story. Some people are
Mhm.
just like, well, I don't know, mine's not as interesting as other people. That's not true. I don't
Right.
believe that at all. But you said something really key earlier where when in the midst of writing the book, you had to take a step back and you had to consult with a professional in the space of psychoanalysis or, psychology, psychiatry, counseling to gather. And here's where I think we need to put together this idea of you're a survivor. And
Mhm.
even in the midst of all of this amazingness that's happening in your life, you had to take a step back because it does swallow you up in certain spaces. So it is so important to recognize that, yes, it's great that we have, like you said, people who extract, people who are looking and hunting down these terrible humans. But then what happens afterwards? Where do they go? And then there's only this year left, right? And even you, after many years afterwards, and then you're writing this book, and there's something you have to kind of step back. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that. Tell us how this book, how you initially thought it would be, what it
Yeah.
was happening in the middle, and then how it
So
came to
where are we?
fruition. Yeah.
So at the beginning, it was just journal entries, right? At the very beginning, I mean, I've been journaling since I was a kid and I've kept them all and they're in a box. And what's beautiful about my particular book is that I didn't even go seek to write it. Somebody found me and was like, look, we've put a scholarship together for you and we would like to put you in this master class and we would like you to write your story. And I almost told them no. Like I literally said, I have to think about it because if I do, this means I got to take it seriously. And if I take it seriously, that means I've got to do all of it. Right. And so that I love the saying, like being ready isn't a feeling, it's a decision. Like you just
Mm,
do it. Right. And you got to go,
yeah.
it doesn't matter what comes out of this. I'm going to do it and I'm going to give it my 100% and I'm going to take that seriously. Right. I'm going to commit.
Right.
So that was the first part was like saying yes. And then I was like, well, how about I bring these journals out and I sort of earmark the parts where I know I want to put it in this book and like
Mhm.
then assign them to like a chapter, right? So like
Right,
here's
right,
like
right.
2 journals in chapter 1 and here's like thing,
Yeah.
so I had it all sort of laid out and I was like, all right, I'm going to write like a chronological piece of my story because this book has to be for anybody who picks it up, somebody can get a nugget out of it, right? I didn't want it to just be like just for a niche of people. I wanted everybody to be able to experience it because trauma in itself, right, is
Is a
non-linear
human
too. Yeah,
experience, yeah.
exactly. Right. And so it happens anytime at any point. So that was the first thing was getting it. And then as we started to do the master class and I started writing it and I started putting the chapters together, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be like 1,000-page book. Right. So I had to go back and like talk to the publisher and say, hey, Kristen, by the way, this is 3 books. Like, I don't know if you knew that going into this because I didn't, and I want to make sure that's okay. And she's like, absolutely. So then it was like, all right, how do we turn this 3 books? Where do we section it? Right? Where does each
Yeah.
piece break off into its own thing? And some of the feedback I had gotten was like, you don't want to leave a cliffhanger because what if you never finish the other ones? Right. So they each have to
Yeah,
close.
yeah. Then you
Right.
just
They open and
upset a
close.
whole group of people
Yeah,
waiting.
right, right. So we don't want that. So we want this to be seamless and like, and each
Mhm.
thing is intentional. So I was like, well, how about we turn the first 18 years into prevention? What did I need to know
Mm,
to in order to have learned, right? Not just know
yeah,
better, but actually know better. Like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
actually understand, like my Angela said, right? Once you know better, you
You
do
know
better.
better, you do better. Yeah.
So that was where I was at. And then because I was also diving into my PhD as we were writing, I was learning things.
When you were
And
pregnant also. I just
oh,
had
by
to
the
throw
way,
that in.
I was also pregnant with my third child. Not like it was the
Yeah.
first one. And so yeah, so I was even you saw it, like I was writing at night, like 7 o'clock at night after like going to work, then taking care of my kids, and then busting out the laptop and writing and reading and trying to figure it out. So I took pieces of that PhD and I started to insert with the chapter that I wanted people to understand. Like, let's just take chapter 1, like epigenetics. What's going on
Mhm.
internally in the DNA before you even have the baby? And what I found was
Right.
that like your grandma carries the eggs of your birth. So 3 generations are there, right? And that like blew my mind because then all of a sudden it started to make sense on this female leader. It was coming, right? It was generationally setting me up for
Right.
this leadership thing. And so then I threw in, the love languages and talking about attachment theories and ACE scores, adverse child
Mhm.
experiences, and like all these things that are preventable for
Right.
trafficking. So if you know, right, then you do better. So book 1 was really that. And when I got to the part where I had to get raw, was I also had to not hold back on my family, not on some things that were deeply hidden inside of my heart, like
Mm.
first loves, right? And things that you just, as a adult woman, you're like, that's not even important. But to the reader, it's very
Right.
important because you want to be
Right.
able to become the character in the book you're reading, right? And then the other part that I thought was interesting is I was told there's either professional books or memoirs. And I was like,
Right.
nope, we're going to smash that together. This is a professional memoir. So as you said, like, I don't do anything in the box. I'm always out of the box.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always thinking out here and then trying to make
Right.
it relative to the person in front of me. So I had to reveal things. And like talking about my dad, super
Mm.
difficult because in the time that I was writing it, I was working on resolving the relationship with him, but I had to be raw about like he wasn't emotionally in my life. And that made me
Mm.
search men in the wrong way. Right.
Mm.
And so knowing that I was going to publish this and have this rekindled relationship with my dad, this is probably what did pop me back open to therapy, if I was really transparent, was going, I don't want to hurt him again. I don't
Mhm.
want him to hurt me
Yeah.
again. And in fact, he came and heard me speak for the first time when I was in the middle of writing this thing. And at the end, he came up to me, and I've been speaking for a while now, Wonderful. Like by the time this happened, and this was just a couple years ago, when he heard me speak, he came up to me. He said, I didn't realize how bad it was for you. And
Mm.
he started crying. And my gut reaction to a distant father who doesn't love me the way I need to be loved, who barely connects with me, my reaction was, oh, daddy, please don't cry like a little girl.
Right.
Right. So I was like, wait a minute. That's a wound that I didn't know I had.
Right. It's expressing something that has
Yeah.
not yet healed.
No, right? And I wish I had that relationship where I would call my dad daddy, like I loved him
Right.
like that much, but I don't have that relationship. And so when that happened, I was like, I need to work on repairing that. I was in the book, I'm pretty ticked off, even though I'm nice, I think I'm nice about it. I just I wasn't happy. So, and I'll be really honest, he has a hard time reading. I don't know if he's finished it. So that was something that I was working on in the middle of all of that. And it was bringing up all this stuff. Right. And so I needed to go, and I think seeking counsel is a very mature thing to do. Right. It's a very wise thing to do. It's actually biblical. You should go
Right.
seek advice from people that you trust and will lead you to truth. Don't just go get
Yeah.
everybody's opinions, right? Like go like
Right.
find those that you know will give you good sound advice. So that's where it was. And then I want to talk about this because I think you probably hear this a lot with the women you work with. One thing that started to come out of it once we released it. Well, actually, let me back up 1 second. I want to tell you this funny story. When I got the manuscript before it was in print, when I got the full thing all edited, and here's what we're going to
Yeah.
release. I read it, right? And I read it in one night. I read it that like just
Wow.
because I don't even know. I was obsessed with it. Like I was like, oh my God, this is me. Right. And I was sitting next to my husband. I was like, I didn't even know I was that smart.
Alicia,
I'm serious.
we all knew it.
So I was like, oh my gosh, like this is incredibly written. Like, did I do that?
Right.
And so that leads me to my thought here. And I want to ask you, it seems to me that that glass ceiling is very, very real in our mind about who we are. And I started to ask a few questions. I was like, it's not just imposter syndrome. Like I went through that. That was real. Like, is this even mine? Did I even really do this? Yeah, that. But
Yeah.
then there was this thing like, and my therapist asked me this, are you embarrassed of your success? So real. Like that's the word. I was embarrassed.
That's it.
Like I was almost like, don't, don't call me that. Like, don't say that. But tell me more, because of course you want to hear it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I started to ask a lot of other survivor leaders that I know, like, is this a thing? And they're like, oh yeah, and I don't know if it's a woman thing or what, but I think it needs to be studied.
I think it's a woman thing. Well, I'm just saying that because I'm a woman, and
Right.
I'm so glad you brought this up because I've been personally struggling with this for the
Okay.
last couple months of wait, who am I though? Like, who am I? Without titles, without anything, without any of that. And like you said, it's not the imposter syndrome thing. It's not that. And my therapist says to me, she goes, what is your thing about success? Like, you've had it, you want it, but what is it? And I was like, well, I don't know. And so I go through what all of us go through, right? We say, I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid to be seen. I'm afraid, right? Starts in fear.
Hmm.
And she says, can I make a suggestion or can I throw something in? And I said, absolutely. And she said, do you think you're afraid of having something and then getting it taken away?
Right. And
And
that could be
that
her.
hit the chord so deep because, like you said, we all experience trauma. And that's, I think, the most relatable piece to your book is
Yeah.
not the situation, but it's the trauma that shapes us, that shapes our young, impressionable human souls, our little girl hearts,
Right.
right? Our non negotiable relationships with our fathers that don't exist because I'm with you on that whole thing. And then when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. I'm not afraid to struggle.
Right.
I'm like, I welcome, like, yeah, let's go for it.
Right.
Swords out, shields
Hmm.
on, helmet on, screw the gloves. We're just going
Right.
for it, right? But once we have it, the worthiness of holding on to it,
Of
that's the
keeping it. Yeah.
piece. That's the
Right.
piece of like, I can get there. So now I'm asking, now that life and like what you're saying is, now that you've written the book, now that you've worked on the things and your
Hmm.
children are in the spaces that they're in, your relationship is beautiful, all the things. Now it's like, now what? Now what is it that you're
Can I
seeking?
be
What do
safe?
you want?
Right. Like think about it. Like, can
That's
I be
it.
safe with that?
Can you be safe in all the places that everybody thinks, how have you done it? It's so amazing. It's so good. Everything is so delicious and yummy and together. And like, I combed my hair, got my lipstick on. Now what?
Right, right. Well, so that's the conversation that I'm starting to have is, and I said this is going to be funny because I'm thinking about your wise woman earlier, right? So I said, I've pretty much checked all the boxes. I mean, besides actually being called Dr. Chow, right? The PhD that is
Just
almost
coming
finished.
real, it's
It's
coming in hot.
but that's like the last one. I guess the beach house. That's like like that's the last one.
Yes.
So I said this kind of ignorantly. I was on a book tour in New Jersey a couple of weeks ago. I was staying with this very, very humble and spiritual family, and they love Jesus, right? And I said, I'm going to use his name because he probably won't care because he's that cool. But Bob says to me, you need to be thinking about your future, right? And like how do you want to feel? How do you want to be? And I said, Bob,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be good at 75 if like the Lord just took me home. Like I've done everything I want to do right now. Like I feel like I'm content.
Yeah.
And he goes, don't you say that in my home, about yourself. And I was like, what? Like he took me off guard. Like he was like kind of throwing it at me. And he's like, don't you say that. How do you know you're not going to be running on the beach? How do you know that you're not going to be, playing with your grandkids on the floor? He's like, why do you think I work out? Why do you think I eat? He's like, I don't want to be dead in 10 years because I'm sick. He's like, I want to live my life until the last breath in a healthy way. And he's like, why don't you take up like windsurfing or something? Like he said it like that, right? Okay. So Bob changed my life in that conversation. I didn't realize I still have a lot of toxic thinking about who I'm going to become, right? Not
Ooh,
because I'm not in a good space now. I'm in a good space now. But am
right.
I thinking about the next 40 years, right? And the truth
Yeah.
was I wasn't really worried about it. I wasn't concerned about it. I didn't care if I lived or died. Like I've had that mentality for
Yeah.
so long because I've survived, right? I've been in survival mode.
Yes.
So now this calmness scares the crap out of me, right? And I have to make it chaotic.
Yep.
And so I try not to make it as chaotic.
Preaching, girl.
Right. Because if we get into work mode instead
Mhm.
of just being comfortable with what we're at, we're constantly competing with the next person, whether we
Yep.
are in tune to it or not. And so when he said that, I was like, all right, let me just Google this real quick. How old is the oldest windsurfer? 82, maybe 84, but it was definitely in the 80s. And it was this lady, and it literally says she did like 16 miles of windsurfing because she wanted to leave a legacy for her grandkids. And so she's in the Guinness Book of World Records, right?
Wow.
So you want to, this is where like confirmation comes. I get home from that trip and I'm sitting with my 2-year-old and we're looking at his books, right? We're just sitting there looking at his books and the automobile book was up. And so we're reading and he's pointing and saying, car and bus and whatever. Wouldn't you know, there's a little blonde girl on a windsurfing kite thing. I took a picture of it. I was like, Bob.
Look.
So now I have this like kind of like a mantra, right? Like I'm like, that's who I'm gonna be. Like I don't need to let age define me or like my health isn't gonna define me. There's that glass ceiling and I gotta shatter it,
Yeah.
right? Even if it's my own predetermined glass ceiling of who I am and what
Right.
success means. I'm starting to really sink into maybe there's more than 3 books inside of me. Maybe, there's a whole movie. Maybe there's a musical, who knows, right? Like, I don't know.
Oh,
Like, let's just talk
I
Broadway
mean,
for a second, right? Like, that's my dream
yeah.
is that was the
Yeah.
question in my group the other day was like, if there were no limitations, what would you want to do that you haven't accomplished yet? And I was like, I want to start a Broadway show. Now, can I sing? But,
Yes.
like, do I love theater? Absolutely. And so it's like, why not? Why not me? Why don't we change that
Yeah.
shift to why me to why not you? You know?
And I think this is the perfect line of questioning and manifesting an alignment because of who you're in breathing space with, right?
Right.
Because you're right. I think that survivors, especially in the realm that you are in, because it was just deep, heavy, I need to survive. This is life and
Right.
death type of thing.
Right.
Right. And, but then once that's gone, now what?
Mhm.
And then they have like the young lady who's, you said, got a whole cosmetology kit and she
Mhm.
probably, like she can touch face and be like, look at you, you're Beyonce now. The talent is just spewing out of her. But at some point, there is that level of comfort where, but like, I'm 40. Now what?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
so when I turned 50, I'm like, oh my God, I'm 50. So my mom at this age was already very well ridden with cancer, breast cancer.
Mhm.
There was 9 years left until she passed. I'm not in that space at all, not even
Right. How
close.
do you
And
compare?
thank God that's such a blessing. But I thought it was old. And then I talked to my 70-year-old friend. She's like, 50 is when I started dreaming. Really? Because I kind of forgot what that is.
Well, or did you
Honestly.
even know? Right? Did
Yeah.
you even really know? That was what came up in my therapy yesterday was like, because I'm having the same kind of conversation with her. And she's like, but maybe you don't know because you didn't witness, right? Because not that my mom's
Mm,
gone, but she's also health ridden. There's a lot of
right.
problems, and that's what I compare it to.
Right.
Right. And so her at 40 was like a halfway point for real. Right. And for
Yeah.
me, it's like, no, you're just getting on your platform. Like there's a whole launch pad
Yeah.
ahead of you, you know?
I mean,
And
you're
I was
just
like,
in one of three.
yeah. And I've got a
So,
third book two written. So I see it coming. It's coming together really nicely. And I have some really cool ideas for it. And so this one is Innocence Interrupted, right? Like going backwards.
mm,
I see the
yeah,
long-term goal of like, how do I get people to take their resilience that kept them alive and turn it into their superpower, right?
yeah,
And that is at any level, whether that's engaging people one on mass crowd or just being a really good mom because you didn't have one, you know, it doesn't
right.
matter to me what you do with it. It's just making sure that you are accommodating, the life in front of you and not being a byproduct of it, right? You're making it.
Yes.
So Innocence Interrupted is exactly what that felt like. So the second book is actually, and I'm an alliteration fan, so it's Traumatic Truths. And the idea is to play on this, he loves me not,
Yeah.
we say that as a little kid, and we pick the petals and we play with it.
Yes.
But in our reality, now that we've been introduced to these toxic relationships, do we know the difference? Does he love me or does he love me not? Right? He's just not that
Yeah.
into you. Like what a great book and movie and concept. But now can we take that and see it in our other relationships too? Because it's not just in
Oh,
love,
yeah. It's
right?
how you do one thing's how you do everything is
Hmm.
what I keep being reminded of from my therapist is yeah, when she said, "So what is your thing about wanting to be seen?" So I think again, survivors, right? That
Hmm.
you're in communication with every day. This is the internal struggle. Like they have been seen, but not in a way that honors who they are.
Right,
It's
right.
very marketed to, their window dressings of like,
Hmm.
I can just pick their items to be chosen and to be taken home. And I just feel like that these are the like you were saying it, the glass ceiling for all of us women. I think there's one that is universally unspoken,
Right.
and then there's ones that are personal to us in our family structure, in our culture structure, in our societal structure, right? And I think that those all have a conversation. Awareness is key to everything. That is so true. That's not just a statement that I came up with or I was told. Awareness is a real thing. And I think this is what you are bringing to the world is the awareness that yes, innocence interrupted, but you personally are in a different space that you're coming to a crossroad. You're coming to a fork in the road yourself that is so far
Hmm.
removed from the book, but it's informing who you
And I
are
feel like there's
today.
so many more messages that I still have to say. No,
Mm,
I've been telling the story of the coach for the last 10 years. I can tell you to it forwards and backwards now, right? I can say it in front of 1,000 people. I can say it in front of one person. And there's always somebody who comes forward out of that. So it's a good message. But I'm like, but there's still another part of my life that I haven't even shared. There's 10 years of self-exploitation. I don't even need a coach anymore. I learned how to make money by myself. And that's where book two
right,
is going to come in. It's like, okay, you got introduced to this lifestyle. Now you got to keep up with it.
right.
Think about that, right? Like now you got to keep up with
Yeah,
it and it will burn you out. Many people, unfortunately, this is, disclaimer and maybe trigger warning, but like you're going to die of suicide, homicide, or overdose. One of the three are going to get you. I'm lucky. The women that I serve are very lucky, like that God had a tight hold on their heart
yeah,
and that we were able to figure out how to say no enough times that we didn't fail. And so now you've got to use that same, like I said, that same resilience that kept you alive. Now you need to take that same resilience and put that
yeah,
energy into creating something that gives you purpose and makes you feel alive you know and that comes with a lot of digging in, having a lot of introspection and
yeah,
reflection, and saying, I'm going to do life differently this time and mean it, you know? And so I go into these jails. I go into the women's recovery program. We're using this book as a curriculum. It's so much fun right now and I love letting them read it. So they're reading my words, right? And they're having
yeah,
these moments, these light bulbs go off going, oh yeah, I remember that.
right.
And so this particular chapter we were on right now is chapter 5. We're only in chapter 5. And we do this
Chapter
almost
five,
every
the
week.
infamous chapter 5.
Yep, right. Making mistakes. So this one was on the loyalty versus competition, right? And cheating.
Mm,
And I did this with the group that was in the mental health recovery program yesterday, and they had a lot to say about it. They were like, "Oh, these are the people I'm loyal to. These are the people that I compete with. These are
Right.
how I define this." Very, very involved. I just did it at the jail. It was a different conversation. They couldn't think of one person that they could be loyal to or that was loyal to them. They couldn't think of anybody that they really competed with in a
Yeah.
healthy way, but could tell you a whole bunch of people who competed with them in a toxic way. And so but what's very cool, right, is that I get to watch them as they get out of jail, go into the next recovery part of their program, right? Whether it's addiction or mental health or homelessness. And we're in all of those different spaces and we're doing the same conversations. So I imagine with just that
Mm,
first part of healing, they're going to be able to fill that worksheet out a different way, you know? And then let's
right.
talk to them again in like 3 years post healing. I bet they're going to be able
Right.
to fill that worksheet out even more, you know? So
Right.
it's we're always the same person. We're just evolving, and that
Right.
part changes based on, like you even said, like who's breathing life into you. Well,
Right.
if you're sitting in jail, like not a lot of people are breathing life into you, right? They're sucking you
Right.
dry right now. If
It's
you're
a
in, they
survival of the fittest environment.
absolutely. And the altruism though is usually, I'll say it like this too. This is also very interesting. The altruistic behaviors of the women in jail are much higher than those outside of jail because they know what it's like to survive.
Mm,
So they're willing to share their resources. But they
yeah.
realize that can also be loyal to a fault and it can start to burn you out.
Yeah.
And you're giving and giving and
Yeah.
giving, and no one's helping you, receiving, for you. And so that's why we start to build these boundaries and these barriers. And then we can either take it one or two ways, right? We can turn them into a healthy instruction guide boundary,
Mhm.
or we can say, no more, I've had enough and I don't want anybody helping me, which is another traumatic response. So it doesn't actually help
Right.
them. So, but they're learning, right? That's the beauty of the healing journey is that if you really come at it with a student mindset, right? What
Mhm.
can I learn? What can I learn? What can I learn? And be like a
Mhm.
sponge and just absorb, right? And then start making good decisions with, again, that person that you can trust who's going to speak
Right.
life into you. Then it's like the healing journey isn't so hard. But today,
Yeah.
listening to the girl who's just like, she's like, this really triggered me, this worksheet today, and she's not that old. She's in her late 20s.
Yeah.
And she's sitting in jail and she's like, I don't have anybody. Like, I really need to think about that. That's the point,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's the point. This book is going to make you think. It's going to make you
And that's I think that isn't that there's a comedian out there that talks about how critical thinking is like the missing element to today.
absolutely.
She was like, we used to do this thing way back in the day, and you're going to think it's so weird. It's going to be so out of norm, but we used to do this thing called critical thinking, and the audience just roars in laughter because it just the way that she delivered it. You're like, yes, because we think that, but we don't say it. And I think that that's, there's just so much chaos in the world of this blame game
Right.
and all of the highlighting of what's the worst of the worst. Like if
Right.
one could be worse, another thing comes out, no, that's worse than this, and this is worse than that. And when really, like what you're saying is when we can get down to one person at a time, and it has to start with because I'm noticing that, okay, my business is at the pace I want it to be. I'm not the hustling, grinding human I don't think I could be anymore. I just choose not to.
Right.
But it's also not like completely dissolved. So it's in this good place, but what's fascinating is I keep asking myself like, what do I want to attract? Well,
Mm,
as much as I can ask that, I have to ask myself. I am the magnet.
right.
So who am I being that
Yeah.
attracts that? And when I figured that out, I was like, oh my gosh, more work on me. But really, it's not, oh my gosh, more work on me. Just listening to you and talking with you, I really want to turn around and be like, gosh, I need to work on me. Like
Yeah.
more of a level of excitement of the next evolution versus like, oh my gosh, I'm still working on me. That never ends. Yeah, duh.
Duh.
Hello.
Yeah.
So why you're already in book 2, you're going like, I don't know. I have more than 3 books in me. I might have a play. There might be some theater work in this. Who knows?
Because why not? Oh, that's what I go back
Right?
to. And I have those moments too where I thought we closed this thing. Like I thought I was good here, but apparently I'm not because I'm crying about it, you know?
Right.
Um, and so let's go there. And then, being able to sit and just be good with that. Like this isn't a bad thing because this wound still hurts. People do that.
Yeah.
We make it good or bad. It's like, why can't it just be what it is? It's a
Yeah.
wound that still hurts, and
Yeah.
remove that emotion from it so that you can learn from it. So what am I trying to do? What do I still need? And do I need to go like talk to that person?
Right.
Is it going to resolve anything? And that was our ending message today was sometimes it's better to be nice than to be right. Right. Do I have to fix it? No. Right. It just because it hurts me doesn't mean that I need to go do something about it. Like I can just like
Right.
it can be just what it is. Like it hurts. My relationship with my dad is probably always going to hurt me because my expectations are here and my reality is here, and I'm okay now. Like I'm okay that it's here. That's where we're
Right.
at. Maybe one day it'll
Right.
be different. And when that opportunity comes, it'll come. But the other thing that we've been reading I do a Bible study with all these women. And one of the things that really stood out to us, we're reading this book called Draw the Circle with Mark Batterson. And one of his chapters says, do not manufacture your own miracles. Like how many of us
Ooh, that's
do
good.
that, right? You
Yeah.
you have this vision and then you know what it's going to take to make it happen. And so you do everything in your power, right? And we call it hustling, we call it networking, we call it whatever,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yes.
But we go and we go and we go and we go and we try to make this thing happen and then we get sorely disappointed when it doesn't work out. Well, why?
Yes.
It wasn't timing, right? And I give this image a lot, and this might be biblical, but it's also like whether you believe in the universe or you believe in nothing at all, it's like this time space continuum, right? So if everyone is at a crosswalk, let's just say we're downtown Los Angeles, there's 4 lanes of traffic coming from all 4 directions, and you're standing at the stop sign, right?
Mm.
You have to wait for your light to turn before you go. And sometimes that means God has to stop other things from happening before it's safe for you to go. So if you just start walking while he's trying to stop things, you're going to run into it. Like it's inevitable, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what time and space does, right? That's what motion is. So sometimes no, it really is not yet. And we just have to kind of wait for that because when it is good, the doors are wide open, right? And when it's good versus a God idea, that's the other thing, right? If it's a good idea, hey, it's a good idea that I serve all these women and I do all these things. But is it a God idea for me to serve all of these women all the time? No, I'll
Right.
burn out. So I need to focus, right? And so right now it's like the ones that I can get the hands on this book and we can do it together. Like I told them today, you guys are like making history right now. You don't even know it. But like we're
Right.
keeping data on this stuff and we're trying to create something so that hopefully when you pass this little thing down, 300-page thing of like some of my life and some other psychologists' ideas, right? That
Mhm.
it's going to plant a seed. And when it plants that seed,
Yeah.
like your job is going to be to water it. You might not see the fruit, but that's okay.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah, we can't manufacture those miracles because they might not be time. They might not be ready.
I love that you said that because I just came across an old age quote the other day that it says it in the gender role, right? Men will plant trees that they will never have the privilege of sitting under. And
Right.
I feel like that's what this is, that Brave Girl Diaries is, yes, it's you. And yes, that you're processing all of your experiences, past and current and potentially future. But
Mhm.
really, it's a tree you're planting that you might not ever have the privilege of sitting under with whoever takes it to the next level of
Right.
their life, because that's the thing that changed their life, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I
I
think
mean,
that's it.
we love hearing feedback. One of the
Mhm.
best things recently so again, is in New Jersey and these 4 women who were 70 plus used the book as their book club book. So all of August they read this book. And so I just went and visited them at the end of September. And it was a tea party. And I show up, and it's gotta be so cool. I just imagine like myself being in that same position, like we're gonna bring this author in and they're gonna talk to us about the book. Like I just think that's so cool.
Yeah.
So I get there and they were like asking some hard questions, right? Because they've lived some lives. And the one that stood out to me the most was this lady said, I now understand the way my husband was and why he was the way he was. And he's dead now, but I understand it now. And I'm like, can you just imagine like the peace that she's now having in her life that she never had? So she didn't understand it,
Right.
right? And I don't know all the details of what it was, but what I can tell you is that those A scores meant something to her, made sense to why he was the way he was. And she was like, there's freedom in this. I can,
Mm,
I can rest knowing that he's okay. I just didn't get it, but now I do.
yeah,
So I think about that too. Like, I don't need to
yeah,
know everybody's feedback. It's nice to hear it, but you don't know. And that's not the point. It was never about me, right? The book wasn't
yeah.
written for Alicia Tappan. It was written so that I could multiply what I know and get it into as many people's hands as I possibly could. Yeah. So that,
Yeah.
so legacy is still alive.
I think that that's a beautiful way of showing that it's not directed at a group of people, right? Because when you initially said, I didn't want to write the book for just a group of women, but then we're sort of encouraged when we write a book, like think of who you're writing it for.
Mhm.
And that can be a little tunnel visiony. Now you've experienced these women who are, past their time of like dwelling. They're
Right.
just like, we're living and wherever we're headed. But that still, it triggered their space of like, huh, I understand. Something that they hadn't even probably questioned for quite a long time. They probably haven't
Right.
thought about it, right? She probably hasn't thought about it. And so I wonder when you decided to make it a professional and memoir book against all of the suggestions out there, because it's either one or the other. How were you able to not just stick to one thing? Because information can get, especially right in the framework of your PhD and education academically, information is really like pulling at you yeah, statistically, these are facts. This is what's
Hmm.
happening. And then to throw in your piece in it, but then to get vulnerable in your piece. Cause you can't just throw your piece in and be like, yeah, when I was 15, this is what happened. There's emotion. You got to tell a story. There's got to be
Hmm.
some emotion behind it. How did you find that type of writing? How did it happen for you?
I want to tell you that it was like naturally occurring because I wrote it like I was talking to a friend, like I was telling a story.
Mm.
And then I paused when it felt like I'd gotten the point. Then I was like, all right, now I'm going to ask some questions, right? Have you ever felt that way? Did that ever happen to you? And then it was like, well, here's what I know, right? That could be true. And here's my citation sort of thing. And then I created it so that there was that reflection piece. So it's really a 3-part. Each chapter, right, is my story, evidence-based practices, then a part for your story. And you get to fill it in if you so desire. And I think it was because in reality I hadn't written a fiction book ever. I had never written a
Right.
memoir, so to speak, and I'd never really read a lot of fiction. Like I did when I was a kid,
Mm.
but because I've been
Yeah,
in school
yeah.
for so long, I've been reading professional papers for almost 15 years.
Right.
So it's hard to make that shift, but I knew how to write that part, right? I knew how to write that in a condensed way to make it clear. So I just decided like, and I wrote almost all of both books were written on planes. How about that? Yes,
Every
our thoughts,
process, everyone
right?
has a process that
And
just
every time
happens to
on
be
the plane,
yours.
I was just like, this is the time I'm quiet. I can put my headphones in. No one's really bothering me. And they bring me coffee without asking me something. So but it just helped. So I would write, and this is how I'm writing book two. I would write the first part of it, just like I was talking to my friend. Like I'm telling them this story, and here's what happened, and like this is how I felt, and this is what it smelled like, and all the things, right? Then I pause. Then I come back and I go, all right, what do I want them to learn? And so I would go look through, articles and different things, and I'm like, oh, this is what I want. So here's what I'm gonna tell them about it. Here's how to access it. Here's how to process it, right? And then I just would create, and you'll see, like there's other little graphics and stuff. Like I created images because I wanted it to be sort of a full body experience.
Yeah.
So it did have a few steps in order to make it possible
Right.
because I don't think
But
I
it
could just sit
sounds
and do it.
like you're all in it because that's where I think so many of us, and again, I'm just saying women because I'm a woman. I think so many of us women want desperately to be seen and we want desperately to be heard, but at the same time, that could mean rejection, dismissal,
Mm.
judgment,
Yeah.
right? And because of that, there's this constant conflict of like, I want it, I need it, but what price would I pay for it?
You have
And
to
then
be
that's
all in.
always like the break. The break is like,
Hmm.
yeah, I've been paying the price for quite a long time and I'm done giving that. I'm done selling it. I'm done over it.
That's my biggest fear too, is rejection and abandonment. You know,
Mhm.
like I experience it. I mean, in chapter 5 alone, it's twice. You know,
Mhm.
and it's like I don't know. I finally just decided that like fear doesn't get to win, and we're gonna do this
Yeah.
thing, right? Like if we're gonna write it, we're gonna publish it, and if we're gonna publish it, we're gonna try to get it into as many people's hands as possible. But we're not gonna gloat. Right? We're gonna stay humble.
Yeah.
So it still surprises me, right? So that makes it
Mm.
fun when somebody tells me. And like I said, at the women's wing, like they use it like a library book and they passed it around 5 times. And one girl was like, I couldn't put it down. I read it all weekend, you know? And
Oh man.
so like that's so good to hear.
Yeah.
And then, I'll tell you that I don't want to know. I don't care if it's on a bestseller list. I don't want it to be like that for me. I want it to be a
Right.
tool in somebody's toolbox. So if it's not, the prettiest tool, but I will tell you, let me just tell you about the cover real quick because I know we're short. The first time the cover came, it looked like a Danielle Steele book. And I was like, this is beautiful, but not for me, you know? So
Yeah.
saying no to that was one of the most empowering things I could ever do. Say no.
Wow.
Like, because
Yeah.
I'm a people pleaser. I'm going to try to make you like
Yeah.
it, and I'm going to try to convince myself. Well, then the second round came out and I was like, it's still not it. And I had to say it. I was like, it needs to be eye candy for anybody who looks at it. Right.
Mhm.
So I finally we got this version of it, and I even fixed like this. This is different than the original one. There were daisies up here, right? I took those out, right? And so it was just a matter of making it feel good when I looked at it. Like I would buy
Yeah.
that. I would want to pick that up and go, what is that? Then what I did, which was really cool when I got it in my hands, I set it next to other trauma books, other survivor stories. And mine is the most like uplifting, pretty book. Everybody else's is very kind of black and white, sort of grayish, sort of like this mystery sort of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
and they're great books. Don't get me wrong. Don't judge a book by its cover, right? But this to me was like, people are going to want to know what that is. And then once
Yeah.
they pick it up, they're not gonna be able to put it down. And then once they get through it, they're gonna want to recommend it. Right. And that's what I wanted it to be. And I think we all strive for that. So if I didn't go all in, I wouldn't have gotten where we're at. There's no
Right.
way, you know?
Right. And I just want to point out as we're getting to the close here that this word authenticity has been the word of the century.
Hmm.
That's what we are trying to achieve with all of
Hmm.
us is how to be authentic. But I think you just described authenticity in its truest form, that it's not a pinnacle. It's not that you get there. It's not an arrival thing. It's something that you're choosing every single time
Hmm.
because the opposite of authenticity is pleasing people, right? People
Right.
pleasing and in the toxic way, not the healthy way of, you know,
Mind your
what it
manners and be
actually is
nice.
meant
No.
for. But I think you just choosing into like, no, I'm not really liking the daisy's great, but there's too many, or I'm not really liking that. It's looking too, and then doing it in the space of like comparison to other books. That's not really comparative in competitive way. It's more of a discernment of like,
Yeah.
how does this feel for me? How does that feel for me? Because I think that's where authenticity is. It's in a minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day basis decision. It's not a one time gig of like, I'm authentic now. Look at me. Because
I
I
know.
think that's
It'd
where
be hard to
we're
achieve
trying to do. I'm authentic now.
the way through it. Yeah. Saying
Yeah,
yes to
every
it.
part of it.
Going to therapy to process it, writing the hard things, knowing that you could be rejected and people could judge you for it. Do it anyway, right? Like getting on your hands and knees and going like, please let this work, and
Yeah.
then saying no, no, no before you get the right yes, and not being afraid of your voice throughout the whole process.
Right.
And like I said, I surprised myself when I finally read it. I was like, oh my God, am I really that
And
smart? Like, yes,
I knew that when I met you. I was like, Please, Alicia's is gonna be amazing. But I also wanna throw in there that this is everything you're saying from a personal space is the exact thing you're walking women through in your survival-led experiences, because that's
Yes.
really it right there. You walk the talk, right? You have to be
Hmm.
the very thing. And I wrote it down. This toxic thinking of our becoming, that is what needs to be examined within all of us at a certain
Hmm.
point every time we reach a pinnacle, because that glass ceiling is real.
Hmm.
It is real for every individual. And thank you for bringing that up, because I didn't know that that's what I was running up against. Is
Right. Like
like,
your
I
own
didn't
creative.
realize that's what I've been hitting
Hmm.
this whole time, because I've been like,
Hmm.
what is the deal? And that's what it is. I have reached this particular glass ceiling, and I've got to figure out ways to see where my toxic thinking is keeping me from the becoming the glass
Got to
ceiling.
shatter that ceiling. It
Yeah.
doesn't
And
exist. It just we created it, and so why can't we all be windsurfers when we're 80? Like the like maybe it's different for somebody else. It could be something else, but I just I don't even know if I can see myself like that. But I want to become that right version, and
yeah.
so I've got to hold that 40-year from now image very close, right?
Yeah.
And live and do the way I say I want to be. So
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we think instantly to like diet and exercise, but no, it's even down to the way you choose things every day. What are you going to do? Are you going to stretch
Yeah.
yourself out? Are you really going to stretch yourself out back to back appointments? The world's going to keep going whether or not you make that appointment,
Right.
whether you believe it or not,
Exactly. That is
right?
such a true statement of like yesterday I was struggling with myself. I've been doing these my meditative walks every morning, and yesterday I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I don't think I have time for it. I need to get going." No, I don't.
In fact, you probably are going to be better if you do it and are late than if you just straight went to late and didn't do it.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
you know?
100%. So, how do we, the rest of us out here in the world, get a handle on this book? Like, where do we go and what do we do? What's going on? Let us know.
Okay.
What's the deal?
Right. So first, I want you to check out the website. It's Survivor Led Solutions, survivorledsolutions.org. And it just tells you what we're up to as an organization and how we do things. Second thing is Amazon has the book, and it's fairly affordable. I think it's 21.99 on there. Barnes and Nobles is going to start carrying it, but you probably got to request it. So that's the next piece. The other parts, I'm actually trying to put together a book signing tour for America next year. So if you have a Barnes and Nobles in your city, that's easy.
Yes.
And then in New Jersey, we just went coffee shop to coffee shop. So I had a friend who just called a few places and they were like, absolutely, we'd love that. And then I just bring my stuff and come and hang out. I love to tell my story. I love to talk about it. And then past and beyond that, anytime there's a conference of any type, whether it's women's conference, leadership, anti-trafficking, law enforcement, whatever, I try to apply and be a speaker because I think that my story is much more common than we give credit to. And it makes people uncomfortable at first, but then they realize like they can play a part in the role, right? So every time you purchase a book, that actually donates back to helping the women that we serve. So that's also part of the method and how I wanted to handle this. So yeah, you buy a book, you give a book, basically.
Nice. Do you hear that, everyone? Buy a book, give a book. That is the key to how we really support each other. It doesn't always
Yeah.
have to be in ways that we think. It doesn't always have to be monetary. It doesn't always have to be time. It could be all of the above. It could be one or the other. It could be however way you want to do it. And I always love getting your information. I always love getting your emails of what you're up to next and all the ways that you exist in the world, because you are extremely inspiring, not just in the things that you do, but just in how you're being. Because I think every now and then, when you said windsurfing, that's so funny. I have been really thinking about, man, I've never ridden a horse. I really
Right?
want to ride a
Come on.
horse. And then I was thinking, I wonder how old you have to be to compete in those jumping things.
See, you're going to go look it up now and you're going to find out.
Yeah, I've just been
And
having a thing with horses lately. I
you
go
should
on
do
my
it.
walk and I come across this horse, and we've never really connected. The other day, though, we did a stare down.
Come on.
And then it started walking towards me, and then I started walking towards, and then I just started bawling.
Yeah.
And then it was
So
over. I was like, okay, this
horses
is my
are a
thing.
window to the soul. That's why equine therapy is so helpful. We could spend a whole nother conversation on this, but yeah, you're drawn to it because it sees you, and it feels
Yeah.
you the same way that you can, feel and see them. That's I think why, Native Americans like and horses were so connected. They're powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. And we had this conversation. This hour close is I had that asked, what do you want to do if there were no limitations? And one woman said, I always wanted to work at NASA, but it's too late now. I'm too old. I'm not going to be an astronaut. I said, you know what we still need though? We still need science teachers, people who work at the planetarium, volunteers who help,
Yeah.
like buy somebody a freaking telescope and see what happens to your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just engaging in it, your passion, it doesn't have to be what you manufacture to be the miracle, right?
Yeah.
It can be what is actually your purpose. And that might be inspiring some other kid to go to NASA.
Right. Yeah. And don't go into it with an assumption of what it is, because that's what what you were saying with this relationship with your dad. Expectations is what kind of sets us up, is when we go in with expectations. But what if you were just heart led into it? What if you
Right.
just decided, like the horse? I have walked past this horse tons of times. And this particular day, as I'm mulling through my thoughts of like, who am I? What do I want now that I'm in my midlife? And I just happened to passively look, and it just was staring at it, just was staring straight at, and it sort of started walking towards me, and I could feel myself pulling towards him. I know it's a him. And I just started crying. And it just kept letting me touch, pet. Never even came that near to pet it. And my dog is yipping at it. The horse just like, don't care. Keep talking, dog, but I'm going to have my moment with her. And
Yeah,
I
it's the
felt
heart
so
moment.
seen by this
Yeah.
horse in that day. And I thought, this feels good. This is what I would like for my experience to be moving forward. But then it's like, now how does that work? But don't manufacture miracles.
No.
Right
You can take
down.
a step forward. I encourage you to take a step, but don't force it. So just do some research. There's an
Yeah.
equine ranch near you somewhere. There are
Oh, I'm in
somebody's
Washington
got it.
State. This is like horse. I don't know if
Capital.
it's horse
Right.
country, but there's plenty here. There's one walking distance to my house, and
You just maybe
I
need to
live
meet
in the
the
city.
neighbor. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing yourself with us. Thank you for sharing your journey, your current journey, and your book. I'm definitely going to get in on this. It's fascinating to me. First of all, I want to get it just because we started together writing it. So I'm like, oh, I want to see, because we've had so many discussions in our masterclass of how we were shaping our books, and also just to be a part of the story you're creating outside of yourself. That's what this book really means to me as a person who is the outside looking in. Is I want to be
Yeah.
a part of the world that you've created and that you continue to create. So thank you so much. Any last words that you'd like our audience to, whether it's they want to write a book, whether it's they are survivors themselves but have never shared their story, or whether it's about this emerging leader that's always been in them?
My sort of top words of wisdom, and these are not my own words, is never be the smartest person in the room, right? Surround yourself with people you aspire to be like, and then just don't be afraid to let your little weird light shine, right? Because you don't know who it's going to attract. And yeah, you want to put out there what you want to receive. So I just, I encourage people to do that. Say yes. Just say yes, like know when the right yes comes, and say no to the one that's not, and learn if you don't know what that is. Like start testing yourself, and with discernment, like you said, it's a beautiful skill to have, and we all have access to it, especially as women. So we just need to trust it. My mom always used to say, trust your gut. And I was like, I don't know what my gut says. Most of the time it's hungry, but now I get it. And what she's really saying is like, sharpen your senses. Don't dumb yourself down, right? Don't try to just fit in. Focus on like what you want, and then make no excuses. Go after it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your words of wisdom, for your light, your little weird light that shines
Right?
for us. And thank you for committing to writing your story. And
I appreciate it.
thank you, everyone. And until next time, her truth is revealed.
Thank you, Wonderful.
Thank you so much for being with me on today's journey. If you felt something resonate, if you saw yourself in this conversation, please take a moment to subscribe. Share it with a friend who needs this space and leave a review. It helps others find us, and it's a small way you can be a part of this powerful movement. Ladies, this isn't just a podcast. It's a community, a revolution, a place where midlife women come together to embrace our hard-earned wisdom and vibrant truth. So thank you for being part of this. Remember, it's time. It's time to step into our truth. No more holding back. Midlife is ours to own, and it's only getting started. So, until next time, take a breath, honor your journey, and live with audacity, courage, and joy. This is our time, our truth, unraveled, revealed, and celebrated.